Hey everybody, I'm JJ. You're watching Reality Survival, and today we are going to talk about top 5 most dangerous threats or most realistic threats as I see them anyway. Hey everybody, I'm JJ. Let's see if I can figure out where the chat's at today on this thing. I'm not seeing it as I normally would. Strange. Always something with this nonsense. I don't know where the chat is or why it is not popping up. The chat's at today on this thing. There it is. I had to refresh my screen. Come on. I must have a slow internet. If I've got a slow internet connection, if it's not good signal, let me know in the chat. Not that I can really do anything, but I won't make you guys suffer. I'll just get off here. I'm not sure why this thing ain't popping up. Hang on here. Ah, there it is. Okay. Oh, there it is. So slow. This is part of the benefits of living out in the country. You got, not wonderful internet signal and all that kind of stuff. Hang on. There it is. Okay. Mr. Landfill, Herbert Oakley Jr., Scott Hummer. What's going on, guys? All right, I'm going to pop this thing out here. It's finally where I can see it. And we'll get started. Okay. Let's see. So I guess while we're letting some folks flow in, I will talk about a few little like admin things or whatever. We got one, the SE6. This is going to be this month's giveaway over on Substack. This is a badass knife, I think. I think it's one of the top 3 to 5 survival and bushcraft blades out there. It's really sized just about perfectly where you can do just about everything with it. Still small enough where you can be pretty handy and precise and that kind of thing. You got the finger choil on there and all that, but big enough that you can do split wood fires if you had to and all that kind of thing. Obviously, it could be used as a fighting knife as well if you had to. But got a great little sheath on it. Really locks in tight. Can be mounted vertical or horizontal, whatever you want. So just a cool little knife. If you want to get in on that giveaway, all you got to do is go over to realitysurvival.substack.com and sign up as a paid subscriber. We do have a free option as well if you don't want to do the paid thing, and by being a free subscriber, it'll at least allow me to email you each time I put up a video or like a weekly upload or whatever. I don't spam you guys and all that kind of thing. There's several different features if you download the Substack app where I can kind of push them to you. But speaking of app, I'm also I'm not doing it. My buddy is doing it, is developing our own app to be able to put content right there in the app on your phone. Sort of a direct line with, no middleman, so to speak, in there, or as little of a middleman as possible, I suppose. We don't have the ability to host our own video, so we'll still have to host that from Rumble. But I'm really trying to do things to try to kind of push things over towards the Rumble side, because YouTube is being just ruthless on the shadow banning and all that kind of thing. I don't know what it is. What I've noticed recently is that since I started talking about the carnivore diet, it seems like my viewership has plummeted. I don't know if they just don't like that because it's anti-climate change or what, but yeah, whatever. I don't really care. But I still do want to be able to communicate with you guys, and so that's why I recommend that you get signed up over at Substack. Even if it's just a free membership, that's totally cool. And then when I get the app out, it's in beta testing right now. We've got it on the Google Play Store and on the iOS store for Apple. But it's not available to the public yet. We're still just working out all the bugs and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably going to be a while before we get it up, in a few weeks or a couple months, or I don't know how long, but anyway, that's coming. So just thought I'd let you know about that. Let's see, what else do we got? As far as the carnivore diet goes, that has been going great. So I recently went on vacation. We got to see my eldest son get married, and we kind of took a tour we went to Huntsville, we went to Chattanooga and Knoxville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, and just kind of got to hang out in that area, and then went to Shenandoah Valley for the wedding. And it was almost 2 weeks that we were on the road and eating out all the time, pretty much, and was able to do it and stick with the carnivore thing for the most part. We had a little wedding cake, that kind of thing. So throughout that whole period, didn't gain any weight, which is good, because on a normal vacation, I would have gained like 10 pounds at least. So we're down 30 pounds now, and all of the ailments that I've talked to you guys about before are still gone. The arthritis in my fingers is still gone. Insomnia is gone. My gallbladder doesn't hurt anymore. It's not, messing me up or whatever. And what else? I'm sure there's other things that I'm just not thinking about, but yeah, I'm really enjoying that diet so far. And I've been doing it since May 5th, and no real issues. Now, I'm not doing a strict carnivore, maybe called dirty carnivore or like ketovore, whatever you want. I do occasionally eat some nuts, some berries. I'll have like lemon in my water if I go out to eat. I'll have like the element supplement for salt and stuff. And what else? I'll occasionally eat some vegetables like olives, or maybe a little bit of cabbage, or like asparagus tips, or like I don't really eat hardly any. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a salad with dinner if I feel like eating it, but just not much we're talking on the vegetable side, less than a couple of percent of the total diet, like 5, maybe not even 5%. As far as carbs go, I try to count the carbs. I try to keep them below 10 per day, and that seems to be going pretty well so far. So, hey, we got Defenders USA in the house. What's going on, my man? We interviewed him not too long ago. You guys should check out his channel if you haven't already. And Jared Williamson is in the house as well. All right, guys. So I would love it if you guys come up with any questions you want to talk about. Well, I'm happy to do what I can to answer that. I'm going to I'm going to talk to you about, well, let's talk about the 5 most dangerous things that I think that are coming our way as far as threats go. So, and this is like realistic threats, right? We're not talking about things that I think could happen. There are things that I think could happen, but I think these are the 5 that I think are most likely to happen, if that makes sense. So, and would be really intrusive on our life. And I've done a video like this in the past, and so several of these on the list have changed recently. So number 5 on the list, I think, is some sort of a massive attack on the power grid. Most likely it would be a cyber attack. Next likely would be like localized physical attacks. We've seen some of that, but I think it could be a bigger, more coordinated attack in the, the perfect nodes and that kind of thing to bring down a larger portion of the grid. And then I would say a large CME, and then an EMP from nuclear detonation, and then like localized or limited nuclear attack causing grid disruption. So that's number 5, massive attack on the power grid. Number 4 is a real pandemic. COVID wasn't really a pandemic. I mean, it was, but it wasn't one of those like 100-year pandemics. And we now know that the death numbers are all jacked up and all that kind of thing, and not nearly as many people died from the actual pandemic. I mean, probably more people have died from the vaccine, which is sad. But I think there's still a possibility, because it was a leak from a lab and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't a naturally occurring pandemic. I think a real pandemic is still on the horizon. I think we're still actually overdue for one, unfortunately. And I don't like that a lot, but that is what it is. Number 3 is CBDC combined with AI. Actually, I'll switch that. It would be a programmable CBDC. So that's a big threat. A programmable CBDC, which is central bank digital currency. If you don't know what it is, I've got a whole bunch of videos on it, or you can Google it. It's a type of digital currency that can be programmed, and it can limit what you can spend and when you can spend and that kind of thing. So if the government needs people to spend money, they'll say, basically you'll get an alert, you need to spend X amount of dollars within 24 hours or it'll be locked or go away or whatever. And that is a huge violation of our civil liberties. And the next one on the list, number 2, is a programmable CBDC combined with AI, where AI is looking at the transactions and all that kind of stuff in real time, and then making recommendations to the government on what's okay, what's not okay, and all that kind of stuff. This stuff is actually just around the corner. We're not far from it at all. I don't know exactly how far out we are. Maybe a couple of years, maybe less, maybe up to 5. I don't really know, but it's coming quick. And then the last one is AI predictive crime models. Got a story that's going to be coming out, if I haven't pushed it out already, on this. There's several stories on it, where countries are starting to use artificial intelligence. They're combining it with big data, and they're starting to have computers make recommendations on what citizens should be targeted for potential criminal activity. Seriously, that's a real thing. And this, I think, is not a good idea. I think it's not a good idea at all. And it could go sideways in a number of different ways, but it is coming down the pipe. And you don't hear a lot about it, and that's because it's not something that they want people talking about, because they don't want you to know what's going on. But they're already out there about everything, but not going to be mainstream kind of stuff or whatever. So anyway, those are what my top 5 are. I would love for you guys to put your top 5 in the chat or in the comments down below. Williamson says, can you discuss the impending CBDCs? All right, so I kind of did that a little bit. FedNow is, they're in the initial phases of FedNow. If you don't know what FedNow is, basically it is an updated version, a digital version of the old SWIFT and CHIPS international monetary transfer system. So when you would wire money from one country to another, that was sort of the system that you would use, is either SWIFT or CHIPS. And the FedNow is supposed to be a replacement for that. It's a digital instant transfer. It happens instantly. When you would wire stuff, sometimes it would take a day or 2 or whatever. So some people believe that FedNow is sort of the backbone for where we might be moving towards, if we were ever to move towards like a global currency and all that kind of thing. I'm not sure there's a ton of evidence for that. Speculatively, that maybe could be the case. But I think bigger than anything, it's just a way for the United States to use that system to be able to distribute money and foreign aid and all those kinds of things as a way to help with dollar supremacy. We still need a global network for money, and if the United States controls it, then so much the better from our perspective or whatever. This is a similar version of the BRICS. BRICS is trying to come up with something like this too. BRICS is not really a threat to the United States because it doesn't have the trading volume that we do. It just doesn't. The Chinese use it, sure, but the vast majority of the stuff that they trade is traded in dollars still. And so they do use them some on some transactions with some countries and all that kind of stuff, but the majority of their trade is done with us, and that's all in dollars. So I don't really know how much of a threat the BRICS thing is personally. I'm just not sure that it's that big of a deal. So will that be used? Will the Fed now be used with CBDC? Not sure. I'm not sure. I think, to me, the most likely scenario and the way that we'll see this rolled out is it'll probably come out in various phases. So we'll start to see a lot of media coverage. We'll start to see a lot of articles talking about it, and that's going to just kind of warm the populace up to the idea of it. Then it'll probably move into like a testing phase where, maybe some of the big banks will use it for interbank transfers and things along that line. Then it'll probably go a little bit more wide scale and it'll become optional, and then there'll be some sort of incentives where, hey, if you adopt this, you'll get whatever, a 1 to 1.5% ratio where you get a little more money if you start using it, or something along those lines. And then we'll probably at some point be to where cash will become illegal, or they'll start to phase it out. And that might be phased out over a series of years or something along those lines. It's probably not going to be phased out all at once. But, we might expect for there to be like a 4 to 6 year transition or something like that, where we start to move towards the digital currency. The best thing that we can probably do to stop it, aside from, like Indiana and one other state, I think, have actually passed state laws that say that it can't be used as a currency in their state. If you can do that in your state, that would be great. That's at least a little bit of a roadblock. I'm not sure that it's going to stop it because it's kind of up to the Congress to be able to determine the money. But you can also just not use it, right? In is it Nigeria? I think it's Nigeria. Don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it's Nigeria. They have basically just kind of stopped using it, or a lot of people have, and that has really slowed down the implementation of it. They recently started doing something, and that got some more people to sign up. Oh, they started restricting the amount of cash they could pull out per day. And so they're using cash as a tool, as a lever to basically push people into it. So I would expect that could happen here as well, but we might have a little bit better ability to resist that in this country because we have a higher GDP per capita. We've got more money here and that kind of thing, and a little bit more influence. In Nigeria, a lot of folks there are poor, and they don't have the real as much of an ability to fight back on it, I don't think. Obviously demonstrating and stuff they do from that perspective, but just from fighting with your dollars, I don't think they have quite that much of ability. So yeah, that's kind of where I see the whole CBDC thing going. My real concern is is not so much just that it's a digital currency. I'm not necessarily threatened by a digital currency if it was decentralized and if it was private and encrypted, and so that it didn't have this ability for the government to track it. I'm not necessarily against change and going away from money in general, from cash in general or whatever. I just think that there needs to be some privacy involved in it, just for peace of mind, if no other reason. And I don't think that we want, any big computers cataloging, hey, there's been this many transactions of ammunition and guns and this, and we need to stop that. And I don't want market manipulation happening, basically, is where I'm at with that. And so I don't like the idea of a CBDC at all. If it was going to be decentralized and encrypted and secure and all that kind of stuff, I'd be okay with trying it. But I'm not. I'm just not sure we're ready for it entirely as a society. I think we've got a little ways to go yet on educating the populace. I mean, a lot of the older folks don't really understand much about it. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm not an expert on it, certainly. But there are definitely people who are older than me, 15, 20 years older than me, that have a hard time grasping it. So we might need to push it down the road, kick the can a little down the road a bit before we are ready for it. Herbert Oakley Jr. says, go back to gold and silver. The problem is with that, I'm not sure that I'm not necessarily against a commodity-backed unit of monetary or unit of currency or whatever, whether that be digital or physical. I'm not against that, but we don't have the physical amount of gold to be able to back it. That's why we went off of the gold standard in the 70s, or whenever, I think it was the 70s, right? And because we didn't have enough gold to be able to back it then. So we definitely don't have enough now, like not even close. Now, if you wanted to do some sort of a multi-commodity basket with like gold, silver, other precious metals, wheat, oil, natural gas, whatever, like some kind of a basket of backed, commodities or something like that, then maybe that would be a potential solution where there's, more volume, and more dollar value or something like that. But with just gold, even just gold and silver, I just don't think there's enough. I don't think that we physically could make the numbers work out right on that. And that also opens you up to some degree of vulnerability with foreign countries wanting to cash in, and all that kind of stuff, and cash in on their debt to get a bunch of gold. And like, it's not just as simple as just going back to gold. Like there's problems with that system. So okay, let's see. How far are we along in this thing? All right, so I did want to share with you guys, what's Jared saying here? Zihan thinks there's a realistic chance of Russia using tactical nukes in Europe. What's your take? Yeah, unfortunately, the further we go down the road with Ukraine and the longer it goes on, I've said this for a long time, that I think that it increases the chances of that happening. I talked about it in a video not too long ago, where one of his, I forget the guy's name now, we'll call him Mikhail. I don't know what it was, but one of Putin's top academic military advisors, that kind of teaches in their military academies and all that kind of stuff, he put out an article where he was making a persuasive argument for the use of a tactical nuclear device in Ukraine. And objectively, his argument was good. Like, I'm not saying I would like him to do that. Not at all. I think that would be a huge mistake. I think it would be a big problem for Russia if they used it. But the argument that he put out from a Russian perspective knowing a lot about their culture. I've traveled to former Soviet states. I understand a little bit about how Russians think. Speak a little bit of Russian, like I don't know, I'm not an expert or anything in it, but I do understand a little bit about them. And his argument was a sound argument. And what I know about the way that think tanks and policymakers work and all that kind of stuff, just from seeing it in the government here, is that anytime you have a think tank coming out with a policy decision or a recommendation for policy, they don't just do that just because. It's not like, hey, what should we talk about today, guys? Sitting around the table, we got a little think tank gathering. Let's talk about good reasons to use a nuke in Ukraine. No, the reasons that the think tanks come out with policy recommendations and things like that is because the government leaders are asking them to help provide justification for what they want to do. So I think that is the biggest indicator, biggest red flag that I've seen so far. And if we start to see more of that, then we really need to pay attention and be on alert. Now, this guy was already a pretty big influential dude. I mean, he's worked in defense policy for more than 30 years, and it's concerning. So what do we think? What do I think would happen if Russia decided to use a tactical nuke in Ukraine? Well, I think that if that happened, the United States would not respond with nukes. Neither would France or Great Britain or Israel. There would be outrage, gnashing of teeth, all that kind of thing. Everybody would be going crazy. And public opinion would obviously turn against Russia more. We would ratchet up the sanctions even more. Yes, there's a whole lot more we could still do. I think we're still buying Russian oil, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a ton of additional sanctions and things that we could do still. But we would also respond conventionally. And most likely what that would mean is probably a almost instantaneous disabling of the Russian fleet across the world. They wouldn't be able to project power anywhere in very short order. And there's not really anything they could do to stop that in any significant way. They would be cut off pretty drastically and punished, just literally punished for it. I don't think that we would probably enter into a ground war. NATO might get involved. Maybe. That's hard to say, really. I think it depends a lot on what the US's response was, and how the attacks happened, what degree of deniability there was in the attacks. We'll put it that way. So yeah, that's just sort of my thoughts on it. I don't really know for sure. I don't think that a single tactical nuke, or even 2 or 3 inside of Ukraine's borders, would cause even a limited exchange, because nobody has enough interest to do so. Now, on the flip side of that coin, Destiny, I'll get to your question here in just a sec. On the flip side of that coin, I also think that Russia doesn't have, unless they are down to their last option, they probably won't do that, because environmentally, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And the reason I say that is because the prevailing winds from the Ukraine to Russia and Moscow move west to east. So the fallout is going to be largely on them. Now, if it was set at an airburst height, to maximize infrastructure damage, there's going to be a lot less fallout. A couple of bombs, 2, 3 bombs wouldn't be that big of a deal for them to deal with. But I don't really think that they want to go that far. Right now, like we talked about in another video, Russia's getting to use up a lot of its old munitions and all that kind of stuff. So is the United States. There's, there's some benefits to both sides. Now, Russia has definitely been hurt more than than we have, or more than NATO has, but it's not, this war isn't wide scale enough to be like super impactful where people are going to be like rushing into World War III. I don't think. Now, if he set off tactical nukes somewhere else in Europe, obviously all games, all everything's called off and it's going to go straight into World War III. I'm not sure that that's going to necessarily happen. Okay, Destiny says, what is the best solar generator bang for the buck? So Destiny, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a ridiculous amount of experience with solar generators. I have one, actually I have two. One's a fairly small one. The other one is the Energy Kodiak, and I've been meaning to get another one. And the one that I was going to buy, I had it in my Amazon cart the other day, and I was gonna pull the trigger on it. Was the EcoFlow Delta Max 2, I think that's what it was, and it's about 3,000 kilowatt hours, and it's got a lot of great capabilities. I haven't heard anything bad about the EcoFlow Deltas, or the Delta Maxes, any of the EcoFlow products. I haven't heard anything bad about them. They seem to all work pretty well. Same thing with the, I haven't heard bad things about the Alcatels or the, what's the other one? Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti. I think any of those are probably going to be fine. You really just need to look at like the options that you want to have, the kilowatt hours that you want to have, and see which, one you can get the best buy on. Because I think for most people, they're probably going to cover what you need to do. I do think that the reason I was going to go with the 2 Max was, if I remember right, I hope I'm saying that's the right model, was that you could stack the units. So you could buy an additional battery or whatever, and you could stack them, and then you can plug them into your house through a transfer port. And I like the idea with that because they also make a 12-volt DC generator, and that is a more efficient way. A direct 12-volt to 12-volt system is a more efficient way to charge, and they'll charge faster. The batteries will. So if you were to stack like 2 or 3 batteries, you could probably run your house for quite a while. Turn the DC generator on, let it run for an hour or two, or a couple hours, whatever. Charge the units up, let them run off the batteries for a while, and you could kind of go back and forth and not just have to have a generator going the whole time. At least that was my thoughts on it. Now, I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and he brought up to me the idea of a PTO driven generator. And I'd heard about them a long time ago, but I hadn't looked at them and I hadn't considered them recently. And that, if you have a tractor, that's a really good option as well. Like really good option, because tractor can sit in idle forever and it doesn't do a bit of damage to it. Those motors, those little turbo diesels and stuff like that they put in little tractors, little subcompacts and everything, lots of power, doesn't hurt them at all to idle. And a tank of gas, I mean, you could probably idle for, I'm saying it like 500 RPMs, I think is what it takes to turn the PTO shaft on the unit, and you could probably idle for a couple of days on a tank of gas. So that's something that I'm considering as well, because I've got a 55 horse tractor, and so depending on how much I wanted to spend on the generator, that, as far as the kilowatt hours go, I guess it's basically 1 kilowatt hour for every 2 horsepower. So with a 50 horse tractor, you could get like 25,000 watts or 25 kilowatts, which would run your whole house, right? That 25,000 would be more than enough. You could run the AC and everything. You wouldn't have any problem on most average size homes. So that's my thoughts on it, as far as that goes. Destiny said she fired up her generator yesterday, and all of a sudden neighbors started to peek over the fence and need more quiet. Yeah, I mean that's definitely that those little generators are very quiet. That's a benefit to them for sure. I will say that I'll just make a comment on this in general. I've heard lots of people say, especially when they're talking about EMP shields and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, a lot of good that's going to do you when the grid goes down, because you're going to have power in your house and everybody's going to hear your generator and they're going to come attack you. Look, if something as crazy as that happened, right, which is, it's not super likely, but if it did, it doesn't matter if you have power or don't have power. In the chaos of an actual nationwide grid down situation that lasted for more than a couple of weeks, or even really more than a week probably, but everybody's going to be a target. That's what you got to understand. If you think that just because your house is dark and quiet, that there aren't going to be looters and people coming around to check your house and take your shit too, you're delusional. Now, having power at your house might make you a little more of a target, but not significantly, because you don't understand the nature of how criminals think. Criminals want to get the easy stuff first. They're going to go all the places they think where nobody's home, all the dark places, all the places where they think they can sneak in, grab some stuff and get out. Okay, because they're smart. They know that bullets go both ways. And so yes, it might raise your level of attention some, and maybe you could use some common sense in the way that you use your generator, like running it during the day when you're out working and doing things so that you can monitor what's going on and who's around, not just running it at night to be a big beacon to people. But you always have to have a plan to defend yourself no matter what. So the assumption should be, A, I'm a target. B, I have a plan to defend myself, regardless of what may come, or who may come, however they may come. I'm ready. My family is ready. We're trained, that kind of thing. It shouldn't be a deterrent for people. And I've heard that comment so many times, and it's just so silly to me that it's almost just like, well, I just want to be in the dark and let my food spoil in my fridge so that nobody comes to attack me. It's sort of this little defeatist coward attitude that people have. And you're just going to be more of a victim, because people are still going to be knocking down your door just because even if you don't have lights on. So, whatever. I can save you $50 on an EMP shield if you want to get one at empshield.com. Just use the discount code Reality Survival. All right. So, yeah. So quiet's fine. Quiet, you're having a better quiet option. There's nothing wrong with that. It does lower your signature a little, but you still got to be ready to just, take care of yourself. Okay. What is next? Oh, well, speaking of electric grid options, let me show you griddown.com. So griddown.com is a collaborative effort between EMP Shield and Lion Energy, and they make a pretty cool system for a battery system for your home. Now, it ain't cheap. It's made here in America by a veteran-owned company, but it has a really, really robust capability. So their smallest system is the Redoubt. And like I said, it's got EMP shields built into it. It has a 13 13.5 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. And it's got the EMP shields on the DC side as well as the AC side, 25-year warranty, lightning protection, 10-year warranty on the EMP shields. It's also eligible for the 30% tax rebate, and it's got free shipping. And the thing that I like about these is it's the best battery system that I've found. It'll take solar inputs, it'll take AC power grid input to charge it, and you can also do a generator to charge it. And you can also hook it up with solar panels and have a completely off-grid system, or you can also do a grid tie system if your area will accept that. So that if you have panels and while the grid is up, you want to go ahead and be feeding back into the grid, then you can do that. Well, the grid shuts down, disconnect from the grid, now you have an off-grid unit. That is what has been missing from all the battery systems I've seen and all the solar systems I've seen. Like the vast majority of them are either off-grid or battery or grid tie. This one will do both. At least that's my understanding of it. So they're expensive. $15,600 is what they're costing right now. I can save you about $1,120, so $1,020 by using the discount code Reality Survival. So that would take you down to what, 14.5? Then you can do the 30% tax rebate. That's almost $5,000. So really you're down to about 10 grand ish for a system that is really going to cover 99% of all your needs, just with the batteries right there. Like just the battery system, the 13.5 kilowatt hours is probably going to cover 90% of your power outages without any additional inputs. Power usually comes back on in a few hours for most places, right? It doesn't usually last that long. But if you've got some limited solar capability, or if you have a portable generator, if your batteries start getting low, pull out the generator, charge up the batteries, you're good to go. Pretty cool option, I think. So anyway, just wanted to show you guys that it is actually available now. I mentioned it earlier in a few videos, but we didn't actually go like completely into it. But I think it's pretty cool because it's made in America, veteran-owned company, if I remember correctly. And yeah, they stand behind their warranty, So yeah, it'll do off-grid, grid-tied, and combination. I think that's just the way to go. So anywho, and it's got an app and all that on your phone. So pretty cool deal. All right, let's see if you guys got any other questions. Otherwise, we're probably going to wrap this up pretty quick. All right. The Australian woman, Crafty Veteran, what's going on? If you guys haven't subscribed to Crafty Veteran, just check it out. Oh, speaking of which, actually, let me see what she says. I bought a small 150-watt solar generator with 160-watt panels. I'll run 15 watts, Christmas lights, working on a bigger system. No, that's cool. Heidi Homestead, how you doing? I don't know if I would want to be the only one around with power. We just talked about that, bud. It's funny. Okay, so Crafty Veteran just reminded me something about the app that we're coming up with, right? I talked about the app a little bit earlier. We're going to have an app, and the idea that we're coming up with, or that we're kind of like playing with right now, and I don't know exactly how it's going to come out, but the thought process is that if other prepper channels want to have the ability to put their content into the app, then there's going to be a way that they can do that. So like Crafty Veteran would be able to get a profile, and when you guys log into the app, it would probably, we're still working on it, so don't hold me to this, but have like different icons or buttons. So like, okay, I want to see what Reality Survival put out today, boom. Or you might see like a notification thing, hey, he's got a new video. Then there'll be another icon for Crafty Veteran, and another one for Renaissance Marine, or another one for Leatherneck Prepper, or whoever, anybody who has a channel that's into prepping and all that kind of stuff. The caveat is I have to approve the videos, because it's my app and I'm not going to sign off on fear porn or outlandish bullshit, so chemtrails and all that kind of FEMA camps and crazy nonsense like that. I'm going to try to be as liberal as I can on it, but there is going to be some degree of a review policy. So that it's probably going to have some sort of a fee if the channels want to do that. It isn't going to be much, maybe like $10 a month or $100 a year or something like that. Not a whole lot, but then that would give you access to all the viewers that are watching my channel, and it would help smaller channels grow. And then it'll also give the smaller channels the opportunity to, market it to their audience, and then help my channel grow too. And so it would be like a collaborative kind of effort or whatever. So that's coming, just for the people out there with the smaller channels, and or who are trying to grow a channel, or even if you got a bigger channel, like I figured I'd probably talk to Ethical Preparedness about it. Who else? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but guys that are kind of like in the same circle and kind of, who have the same mindset as I do, or who are more kind of mission aligned as us, then we'll definitely, make it available to them. Refuge Medical, maybe, if they're interested, or Bear Independent, any of those guys, just a way to collaborate in the space and try to remove as much of the filtering that YouTube does. The idea being that you could get a direct notification on your phone, bing, somebody's got a new video, and then you would know. So if you subscribe to their channels, if you like their content, then it'll tell you, and and you'll be notified. And it's just that simple, just that direct kind of line. So we're taking the algorithm out of the picture altogether. Jared Williamson says, so no Canadian prepper. Yeah, no, sorry, no Canadian prepper. That's going to be a big fat no. But I'm sure there are lots of other channels, anybody who would be interested, and some of these bigger channels, they might even have apps already, I don't know. But we're working on it, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's and there's lots of potential and ways that we can go. That my buddy that's doing this is a digital master. He's really, really good at this stuff, and he's just started learning the mobile app thing. And so we're kind of figuring out like what he can do, and what's realistic and what's secure, and like kind of just getting it all lined out right now. So it may be several weeks to a couple of months before we get it going, but I think it'll be kind of cool. I'd really like to see a messaging feature in it, so that people could contact one another and talk with each other and have like a community too. I don't really want it to be like a forum kind of thing, but more like, I don't know, like something that could serve to help put people in contact with the people in real life. Now we have to do that in a way that I've mentioned this once before, and a lot of people, put out OPSEC concerns and everything. And so we're going to have to be real careful to think about how we could do this. It would never be anything that would give anybody's, address or location or anything like that. But it might be like, if you're within 100 miles or so many, whatever of somebody, then it can give you the option to communicate. And then if you guys want to set up a meeting somewhere, you could. Now there's still risks with that. You don't want people following you home and, all that kind of jazz. But I think it would be cool to be able to have some sort of functionality at some point to help people be able to meet like-minded people. I'm not sure if we'll get there. We definitely won't get there in the early phases. If we did that, it would be later down the road when we have figured out how we want to do it securely. So, just some possibilities coming down the road. Who knows what exactly will happen? We'll see. Okay. So David says, I would think that people would have prepped by now if it was something they planned to do. The generator issue might be a hot item to get now after what we heard lately. Yeah. I'm very concerned about regional short-term outages in the power grid. And the reason I say that is because the more we add solar and wind to the grid, the more unstable the grid as a whole is going to become. And then you have this other little leg where you're adding more EVs and more electric vehicles and more heat pumps, and electric heating and cooling systems to the unit or to the grid. And there's a lot of government subsidy money out there that is being spent by big corporations, big companies, who are hiring lots of attorneys to get that money, to grab that money and spend it and implement it. So we're not going to be able to stop it. The grid is going to be less fragile, or more fragile, less reliable. That's a certainty. Now, that might happen in a period of like 2 to 5 years or 6 years, or I don't know exactly how long. It's going to be a while before all that happens, because it's going to take time to build that, infrastructure and be able to do all those things and spend all that money. And spending money actually takes time, right? And there's a lot of money out there to be spent. So it's going to be a years-long process. And in the end, we might actually have a more stable grid if we get enough battery capacity and all that kind of stuff. It might actually be a good system, but the transition to that point is a long way coming. We're not going to get there fast, and that transition is going to be bumpy, I think. And so I don't think it's likely that we'll have nationwide power outages because of the solar and the wind and all that kind of stuff. But I do think it's possible that during extreme loads during the summer, or during storm events and weather events, or during the winter time when there's heavy loads and stuff, we're probably likely to see increased short-term power outages, probably less than 2 days, like maybe 10, 12 hours, a few hours, that kind of thing, maybe a couple of days. I don't think that most of them will be long, but I think we'll see it with increased frequency. At least that's my guess. I might be wrong. Who knows? That's just something that I'm concerned about. And so I'm trying to figure out here, what I want to do for my power situation and all that kind of stuff. We're probably only going to be here for a few years. So I've got to look at like resale and investment. Do I want to be able to take the option with me? So I'm contemplating between this grid down power system and a PTO generator, and I don't know for sure where I'm going to land on that, but I think it's going to be a bumpy road for the grid, more fragile than what we have seen for a while. But who knows? I might be wrong. All right. It looks like we've been on here for an hour. So unless you guys have got anything else, I'm going to get off here. I'm going to review and see if I missed any questions. I don't think that I did, but all right. Interesting. Luke J says a new concern may be access to AI when grid goes down, like ChatGPT. Yeah, it's possible. If you guys haven't utilized AI and limited language models and ChatGPT and Bard and whatever some of the other ones are, you really need to spend some time doing that. There's big changes coming in the world of AI. And it's going to replace a lot of white collar jobs. I have a video coming out, I think, here pretty soon, talking about the jobs that are likely to be most affected, and then the jobs that are not likely to be affected. And the overall trend of that is white collar jobs, they're going to be affected big time. Blue collar jobs, not so much. Service industry type jobs and stuff like that, not so much. But yeah, there's big changes coming here. We're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, right? South Florida DCL in the house. What's going on, sir? So he says, went old school, bought a Marlin Trappers 4570 for grins and giggles. Whew, that's got a little wallop to it. And the ammo's not cheap. All right. Question, Australian woman says, question, are you concerned about the migrant children with active tuberculosis being allowed entry into the USA? Takes 6 months of antibiotics to treat this. You know, I'm not extraordinarily concerned about that. And the reason is that we have a fairly robust medical surveillance system in the United States. Well, at least we should have. And TB is something that we have medicines for. We know how to treat it. And so I'm not hugely concerned about that. I mean, is it concerning? Yeah, it's not great, but it also isn't something that our medical system can't handle. So not a huge concern for me. The best way to avoid any catastrophe is not vote Democrat. Then again, that doesn't matter. And again, it doesn't mean the Republican running is the answer either. Crappy situation we're in. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't generally get too into politics on the channel here. You guys know that I'm very conservative, very right leaning or whatever. If you haven't paid attention to Vivek Ramaswamy, you really should. Take a few hours, listen to some of the podcasts that he's been on. He's been on Timcast. He's been on the All In podcast. I don't remember which other ones. He was on the Summit, the Tucker Carlson Summit, I think. He'll be on more and more. That guy deserves your attention. He is extremely intelligent, very principled, and for me, in the primaries, I will vote for him 100%. And I think that he deserves your attention as well. One of the most impressive candidates I've seen in a very long time, actually in my lifetime. I'm almost 50 years old. I would say I would put him on par intelligence wise, probably with George Bush Sr. Like, because he was a smart man. You know, ran the CIA for a while and all that kind of stuff, or deputy director of the CIA, whatever he was. I mean, he was an intelligent guy. Bill Clinton is also intelligent, although he's slimy and dirty. But I think that Vivek is probably more intelligent than both of those men. But really, really impressive and very principled, and has great ideas. He understands the cyber economy. He understands social media. He understands the woke culture. He wrote the book Woke Inc. That talks about and exposes why all the woke stuff is happening in these corporations and everything. He's a successful businessman. He's never been in politics before, so he's a complete outsider. He wants to just completely abolish the Department of Education and multiple other government agencies, which I am all for. Just seems to be a very solid guy. I haven't seen him or heard him say anything that I find concerning yet. And I've been paying attention to him. I've been listening to, all of his speakings and all that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can give you his name here. I'm not 100% that I'm spelling it right. I think that is how you spell his name. I put it in the chat there. He's Indian, so he's an American citizen born to an Indian immigrant parents. He is a Hindu, although I'm not 100% sure kind of like how much of a practicing Hindu he is and all that kind of thing. That might be the thing that might concern me the most, but not really, because there's nothing too crazy or wacky within the Hindu religion aside from the fact that it's polytheist. But yeah, I, like Crafty Veteran says, he seems very legit so far. He's super accomplished for a young man. I mean, he's like 37 or something, but he's very well accomplished. He's a multimillionaire, and Trump has said nothing but great things about him, which, is interesting. He knows Trump. He knows DeSantis as well. And he's not a dirty politician kind of guy, but he really does deserve your attention. At least just see what you think about him. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think he's the best in the field so far by a long shot. And Trump's, I don't have a problem with Trump. I think he governed pretty well for the first 3 years. The last year, he handed the government over to Fauci, and that's inexcusable to me. And that's the reason that I won't vote for him in the primary, because there was serious damage done because of that. And he gave immunity to Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and all these companies for these, vaccines. And I think that was inexcusable as well. That said, if he wins the nomination, then I'll vote for him, of course. But yeah, Johnny Finance says, yeah, he said that he would pardon Trump. He said he would pardon all the January 6th people, I believe. I mean, just seems like a squared away solid dude. So anyway, Keith says, I think we need a constitutional convention to save the country. Yeah, I mean, yes, it would be helpful. I agree. I think it needs to be done as a convention of the states. If it is done, it has to be done from the states. But I think that with the right people in, a president who is willing to use the power of not signing executive orders has a very, very big ability to change the government as the way we see it. So I don't know, a lot of people don't know, but most of the executive agencies exist because of executive orders. They're funded by Congress, but they're created by the president. And so, for example, let's say if the president who got in office decided that they wanted to disband the FBI, they could. All they have to do is just sign an executive order saying by this date, it'll be dissolved, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Like, they can actually do that. I don't know if he would have the balls to do that or not. He has kind of talked about it a little bit, that they need to be reformed, or disbanded and reformed in a new system or something. So yeah, I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. I'm still watching him, and I haven't, we're not there to the primaries yet, so we'll have to see how it goes. But for me, right now, he's my guy. But time will tell. All right. We are over an hour, so I think I need to get off here and go chill with the family. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to get over to Substack and get signed up, I would appreciate it. It's realitysurvival.substack.com. Y'all have a great night. Don't forget to live the 6 P's. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance.